Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our Women Member Excellence Committee of ICI, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to Yashaswini and Idol Series 37. So Yashaswini and Idol is a Wednesday series of program conducted by women CAs and for women CA under the banner of WMEC. So this series is an extension of Sky High Symposium, which proudly concluded its 100 episodes. This initiative not only aims to disseminate knowledge on technical and non-technical skills, but also aspire to empower and inspire women members, helping them step forward and shine on public platform, showcasing their verbal and leadership skills also. And one more thing I just love to add over here is that WMEC committee has open nomination form for all CA Women Excellence Award. So I request you all of the members, please visit the website and fill the nomination form. So now, if for those who don't know me, I am CA Irish Sheikh. So I'm currently working in FP&A profile and with the Office of CEO and CFOs. So I am the moderator for today's event and a proud advocate of empowering women in the profession. So it is indeed an honor to moderate today's session and be a part of such significant initiative. It is now my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, CA Rachna Basham ma'am. So CA Archana is a highly accomplished chartered accountant and CISA with an impressive 12 years of experience in assurance across BFSI and FMCG sectors. So currently, she serves as a technology partner at a leading CA firm where her expertise in technology-driven solution has set new benchmarks in integrating innovation into risk assurance and financial processes. Her dedication and leadership and forward-thinking approach have made her a trailblazer in the field. So please join me in welcoming Sia Archana Basham as she shares her insight and experiences with us today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Irish, for that introduction. And thank you, WMEC, for the opportunity to present this topic. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Rather, good evening, ladies. I should be addressing that way because probably this is by women and for women. So today's topic is audit trail functionality. For I just put my video off, considering the interest of bandwidth. Yeah. So as the presentation is getting put up, yeah. So our topic for today is audit trail functionality. So before going to the topic of the functionality, let us understand a bit about about audit trail itself and its compliance landscape later. We move to the first slide. So as we see, audit trail is a sequential record of activities which tracks changes and actions by the users or processes within a system. It ensures transparency and accountability, highlighting who performed what kind of action and what was changed and when did it occur, which means the user and what is the information that was changed and when. That is the date and the time when it occurred. So this is typically a step-by-step record of accounting details that can be traced back to the source of. So the meaning of audit trail would be anything that any activity or any event that could be traced back to its source. So that kind of functionality is what we are going to, when we say functionality, we are referring to a functionality in any software or any application. Moving to the types of audit trails, we see that there are three types of audit trails precisely. They are financial, operational, and technical. So we do understand operational audit trails as something or anything that happens across the business, any audit trail for any business processes such as data entry, approvals, task completion, which may or may not ultimately end up into a into a financial statement. However, they also are important, which is why we also record operational audit trails. And technical audit trails are the system level changes, like at a database level, about the access, about the changes that take place at the backend. And the last one, which is ideally the first one quoted here in this presentation, which is financial audit trails, is what we are going to take up as a matter of discussion in this session. So as we see, the key elements are chronological records, user identification, what details have to be changed, are changed, and the time and the date stamp. These are the four major elements which are required in any audit trail record. We move to the next slide. So why is it really important? So we try to cover it as identifying the areas of improvement. As in, if during an audit trail we figure out that one of those four key elements is not in place, those are actually the key controls to ensure the audit trail is in place. So if either of them is not in place, we would come to know only if there is some functionality which is at place in any application, which helps us identify the areas wherein the key control has to be in place, and the key control is what? The audit trail. Nextly, we say that enhance the security and accountability of computer systems. First one talks about overall business processes and the financial processes, which would ultimately lead into the financial statements. The second one talks about the support system, that is the systems, the technology controls, anything that we come across during the audit trail, which is a part of system trail, that also can be enhanced. The security and accountability, if it is not in place, it can be corrected, rectified. Then the third one talks about regulatory compliance, which is ideally the subject of discussion for this session precisely again, because as we know, we when we go to the next slide, we'll probably discuss about that. Lastly, it could be used for all litigation purposes, irrespective of whether compliance or not. Anything where the trail is maintained, it's always beneficial for us to show it as an evidence and produce it even at the court of law. So focusing on the third pointer, which says helping us with the regulatory compliance, we move to the next slide, please. So Ministry of Corporate Affairs, again, had amended the rules in 2021. However, it made it mandatory with effect from 1st of April 2023. That is, it made it as a regulatory compliance from 1st of April 2023 for every accounting software to have an audit trail functionality. So this mandate would ensure that all the transactions, the masters, all the modifications made across the application are proper and they are traceable. They are complete with all the four key elements that we had looked up to in last few slides. That is, what has changed, who has changed, and when has it been changed. Now let me read out what does the notification state. It states that every company that uses accounting software for maintaining its books of accounts shall use only such software which has a feature of recording an audit trail of each and every transaction creating an edit log of each change that is made in the books of accounts, along with the data when such changes were made. So it's referring to audit log, audit trail, and the edit log functionality. Now, what is the difference? Audit trail is just about anything that we create, modify, delete. Whereas when we say edit log, for few applications, it records only when there are changes made to a particular module or to the transactions. However, the current state of all the applications are such that they've made it synonymous. The audit trail and the edit log, the newer versions of all the applications, have audit trail, which is equivalent to all the changes that are made. Next is the objective of the compliance, as in the intent of law, is to enhance the integrity, that is the correctness of the information while we go for audit. You obviously need the data to be complete, correct in all its aspects, and of course available. So we have these three assertions which we need to look up to when we go for an audit. So they are getting covered, and that's also the objective of this compliance: enhancing the integrity, improving the reliability, support accountability, and then making it available, and it has to be complete in all aspects. So for companies, what is the action that is to be, what, how has it impacted the industry, as to what is the to do or the action to be taken for the companies? So they have had to upgrade their existing software. Some some of them had these functionalities, along with the other functionalities. They've had this audit trail functionality with all the four aspects that MCA has insisted upon. So they might have not changed their accounting software, but most of them have had to upgrade their existing accounting systems to ensure that their current systems are meeting the requirements of MCA compliance. Now, for the auditors, of course, as we need this audit trail, this is an audit trail. This would help us in auditing. So no need to say how it is going to help us. It's going to help us in all aspects to verify the financial records, and all kinds of trails are getting recorded in few of the applications. That is the system audit trail, and the financial records or the operational level changes or the database level changes. So it is helping the auditors to have a smoother audit with this better version of audit trail functionality in the application itself, and making the audits more of system based and risk based audits. Moving to the next slide, please. So whilst MCA talks about what and how the companies should make themselves compliant and how they should do it, ICAI guidance note specifically focuses on what it also specifically focuses on how auditors should look forward to this accounting software audit trail functionality. What is their responsibility? What should we look up to? Precisely, in addition to the accounting software that MCA has mentioned, even those applications which are talking to the accounting software are also covered under the scope in this ICAI's guidance note. So it reads out as: auditors must confirm that audit trail is maintained as per MCA rules. And this involves checking whether each transaction has an associated record of any changes made. So the audit trail functionality ensures that all changes in financial records, include their creation, modification, or deletion, are properly recorded and time-stamped to facilitate traceability and transparency. So we move on to the next slide for further. Now, for companies, it talks about how prepared the company should be with respect to audit trail functionality, and the continuous monitoring which is required by the company. Routine audit logs have to be reviewed routinely to maintain their compliance and address any issues proactively. That means the few sliders back, we had seen that how do we ensure that there are improvements in the areas. We must have routinely conducted reviews, periodic reviews. When we say we are referring to companies. So we have chartered accountants who are in industry and who are practicing both. So the next one we say about compliance of verification steps for auditors. We review the systems. We do not actually go and test. The testing and the continuous monitoring is done by the companies. And then we sample and report the non-compliances. That's the responsibility of auditors. Moving on to the next slide, please. So this type applicability of audit trail requirements. Now, we have almost all the companies registered under every company which is registered under MCA is bound to comply with this audit trail requirement. So the applicability, if you see, covers private limited, listed companies, public limited, Section 8, Nidhi, OPC, and producer company. Every company is covered. So the tier 1, tier 2, there is no distinction that way. Every company which is registered under MCA has to follow audit trail requirement and has to be compliant with that. We move on to the next slide, please. Now that we talk about non-compliance, there are a few penalties in 3 categories for companies. What if they are not compliant? Individually for the KMPs, the key managerial personnel, what if they are not compliant? And lastly, the auditors, what if they are not compliant? So if we see the penalties, and they are also subject to, if it continues, they're also subject to disciplinary action. We move to the next slide. And that's for the auditors. So as far as the theoretical part of the MCA compliance and ICA guidance note with respect to audit trail functionality is, we would conclude it and wrap it up here saying that audit trail functionality is a mandatory requirement with effect from 1st of April 2023. And it is applicable to all the companies registered under MCA. Just not only that, audit trail compliance is required, and it was MCA that brought it into picture first. Though it may be a mandatory thing, it would have been a mandatory thing made by MCA. This audit trail functionality existed in many of the applications, even cross-border, like we would discuss about just as an information, just for an FYI. So most of the compliances like Sarbanes-Oxley Act or HIPAA or in the Securities Exchange Act 1934 of the US, the listed companies in US um, had to have these kind of audit trail functionalities or audit trails across their applications, and they've had to maintain these kind of compliances, the requirements. Just that MCA has gotten this into a mandatory requirement with effect from 1st of April 2023. So with that, I think the compliance part is getting wrapped up. We can actually see as to how do we evaluate when we go for evaluating audit trail compliance. So can we have the sheet put up here, please? I asked. So this is the evaluation sheet. For last 2 to 3 years, most of the audit trail requirements and as and when they have been upgraded, we've tried to put it up as how when we actually go for an evaluation, this kind of uh, you know a columnar a sheet which helps us to fill in the details, the basic details. So the first four columns talk about the information, the background information which we need to collect before we go for any audit trail functionality requirements. So the name of the accounting software. So we have just for taking names of the accounting software that we would have commonly seen across most of the organizations of the BFSI domain or manufacturing, maybe now the FMCG. So the basic ones being Tally, so Tally Prime, Edit Log, or SAP, JD Edwards, or any Oracle based or any in-house developed application. For banks, particularly the core banking solutions, PeopleSoft application, and for insurance companies, maybe and maybe for stock exchanges, we may call out Sun Systems. So, name of the accounting software. Why is it important? Because most of them have the so Tally Prime. If you see, the name itself is Edit Log, the upgraded version. The name itself is Edit Log. So we get to know that this is the application, which is the upgraded version and has the edit log functionality as required by the MCA compliance. The second column talks about whether there are auto feeds. Referring back to the ICAI guidance note where we spoke about the interacting applications, that is, the applications or the softwares interacting with the accounting software, we would see that most of the interacting applications send some auto feeds, or they are directly talking to, or they are using the middleware to communicate or to send information to the accounting software. We consider those applications as well. So, if there are applications that way in any organization, we can state them here. And how is the auto feed happening? Also, could be mentioned here for our convenience to understand the audit trail functionality going further. The third column talks about the list of users. Now, B and C have a connect. If there are auto feeds, if there are auto feeds, then the list of users will bear the names of bots or the other applications from where there are batch feeds or there are real-time feeds, auto feeds. So if column B is not applicable, by default, list of users will have only manual or human users. Then we go to the list of activities. We ask which are the list of activities, whether again they are batch activities or they are manual. Third is whether these activities are editable or not. Lastly, whether all the editable activities have been captured in the audit trail or not. Now, for all these four elements, we are saying audit trail with respect to the list of users and with respect to the list of activities, with respect to the editable activities, and all the editable activities are captured. So this column C is really crucial for us to understand. If this information is updated, it would really help us in understanding the further columns. Column D talks about mostly this kind of information we would get from the legal department also of the organization, whereby we have the vendor agreement. Say, for example, if it's Tally SAP, we may not have the when, or if it's a cloud, we may not have the agreement as such with the local vendor. There would be a standardized agreement. So it's beneficial for us because there are certain applications which are global and they have had these clauses and they are still having it and they have upgraded it, all these clauses, to warrant that the audit trail functionality is a requirement and they are present in their application. Secondly, if we are dealing with any in-house application whose vendor is someone who's a local vendor, restricted to a particular region or to a city. We may have user manuals, or we may have the service level agreements collected whereby we get the information of the different functionalities. And if we have in-house developed applications, we may even deep dive into the source code, into the code level, or the versions, and whether they are licensed, whether there are versions of it, you know, going by that, and we would understand whether they have the audit trail functionality. Now, since this audit trail functionality hasn't matured yet, it's been hardly 3 to 4 years that maybe some have started even before it was made mandatory, and the majority rest have started from with effect from 1st of April 2023. So we may or may not have the information for most of the backend level information about the applications. So those are the challenges sometimes faced by both the client and even us. However, for the first four columns, the common challenges that we have faced is obtaining management representation letter from the client saying that we are compliant. One thing that we have to be as auditors be very careful here is, and management representation is obviously a very good thing to have, but it's a good to have. That cannot be a that cannot be an explanatory evidence for ensuring that the audit trail functionality is in place. So that could be an add-on thing. So we still need to obtain the evidences from the vendor, through the client from the vendor, and we need to have our audit documentation updated with the same. So as we saw, the first four columns are talking about the basic information that we need to obtain. The next four columns are talking about what exactly MCA needs. We need to focus on four aspects. MCA talks about edit log feature or audit trail functionality being present with effect from 1st of April. Now the challenge here is most of the clients do not have it from 1st of April. So what do? We report it as whenever it is with effect from whenever, whichever date. We need to report it in the we need to have it reported. That's all. And the second one talks about being enabled. Now this feature has to be enabled throughout the year. So the first and the second features are the reason that Tally Prime. I'm just taking example of one application for the ease of understanding. Tally Prime had these two features earlier as well, but it didn't. What it did not have is throughout the year, which is why it had to upgrade. So typically, I think somewhere the upgraded versions of most of the applications, be it Tally or other in-house applications, and some were even delayed. Like few versions of SAP were even delayed until July. So we have to have it present with effect from 1st of April, and it has to be enabled. When we say present, the audit trail functionality has to be a part of the application as a feature. And secondly, it has to be enabled throughout. There should not be functionality should not be such that it can be disabled as well. So how do we prove it otherwise that it can never be? So that's again something which we need to work out as auditors around the different applications. Third is, we're talking about the first and the second feature. We spoke about the functionality. The third one is talking about at a database level and even at a user level, the report that gets generated, the output, whether that can be tampered. And at the database level, whatever information is stored, whether those logs can be tampered. So this again is a huge amount of data. Again, it's very challenging because we need to ensure the completeness, integrity, and whether it is available at first place. For clients who use SQL over their database, they can surely run a query and pull out the data, but downloading the data, which runs into lakhs and more, it becomes very difficult. So for us to audit what kind of sampling we do, it is of course a challenge. So that's again something which is still maturing, I would say, with the help of luckily tools like Azure or maybe many tools. There are lots in the market which are licensed, open source, trusted ones, which help us in sampling. So this thing can be ensured. Yeah. So this thing can be again ensured with the help of such tools. And lastly, we're talking about audit trail functionality or the edit logs. Again, the output, which has to be preserved equivalent to the number of years that we would preserve the books of accounts, which means 8 years. Again, it is more, it's a humongous amount of data. If so, this all these things, if it doesn't matter if it is in, it doesn't radically make a difference whether it is in cloud or is it in it's otherwise. The audit trail functionality operates the same with maybe a bit of changes to the procedures that we may adopt to ensure the audit trail functionality. So now that we have covered four requirements of MCA, there's a bit of detail that we collect. Event record should specify the below. Now that we have in the third column, we have, that is the column G, we have the population of, or maybe the samples. We try and collect the time and date of occurrence of the event, and the user ID with the event, and the program or the command. There is a technical log, which with technical log, which is used holding the data, and also the system logs, that is the database level logs, which will help us to ensure the assertions, that is the completeness, integrity, and whether it is available at first place availability. So I think these precisely cover everything that MCA and ICAI guidance note calls out. So I'd like to take a pause here and wait for some questions if there are any, please.
Hello. Am I audible? Ma'am, there is a participant who is asking that is there any standard format to report about the audit trail? I guess that the format that you are discussing, is it a standard format or we can customize it? That is their question.
So this is a format which we have adopted. So this is something that we send across to the clients or wherever we have to present for audit trail functionality taking sessions. So this is something which I have put up, covering all the aspects of MCA and ICI. Like I mentioned, there is no standard format as such.
Okay. And another question is there any penalty for auditors if in case the company doesn't implement the audit trail?
No, the penalty for non-compliance is to non-compliance. When we say non-compliance to MCA is with respect to companies. So the penalty is to the companies and its key managerial personnel. If we do not report that the company is non-compliant, probably that is a non-compliance from our end. Is that making it clear?
Yeah, yeah. So we need to do our part diligently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's about all questions that we have currently.
I do have a summary which I can present.
Yeah.
Do we have that much time?
Yes, we do.
Sure. I ask, can we present the summary as well? So once we evaluate, those will probably have the granular level details of all the applications and related and audit trail related aspects covered in it. However, audit trail functionality as a report, this is again a format which we have come up with and evolved as in when we audited more clients. So we move to the as when we move to the work done, we simply, so this is something which we do for as a part of which we can adopt as a part of our audit working paper documentation. This could be the words which we can use as well, few of them in our while we report in the statutory audit report. So we say that we have evaluated the design effectiveness and the operating effectiveness of the automated controls with respect to audit trail functionality. So when we say design effectiveness and operating effectiveness, the evaluation sheet that we saw, which covered all the aspects, as we know that any process will have its design as to how it should happen, and how it is happening is the operating effectiveness control. So we need to evaluate on both design, whether it is design effective, um, whether design is in place, and whether there is operating effectiveness. Then nextly, we talk about sequence. We talk about automated controls as spread across the accounting software, as per MCA compliance and other applications as per ICAI guidance. So then we state the list of in-scope applications, which we saw in the first column of the evaluation sheet. And then we say the details of manual and automated controls, processes and controls. So this is something which doesn't get documented in the evaluation sheet. We might as well have a Word file wherein we record all the walkthroughs of all the applications which we feel are critical applications. Yeah, one most important thing, while we do audit trail functionality review. For those who know, ITGC review is something which a portion of which is again a audit trail review, because the change management domain of ITGC review covers the edit log or the audit trail functionality. Like I mentioned, this is a mandatory thing just because MCA has made it mandatory since 1st April. However, these things existed, and ITGC review is again a part of statutory audit compliance. Um, it's a part of IFC OFR or IFC reporting. Yeah, it's a subset of it. So why? So I had to give that background because as a part of ITGC review, when you collect your walkthroughs, make sure that you have an eye to understand that this functionality of audit trail also is present there. Yeah. So then we report saying we have evaluated the automated controls with respect to ATF for the below. We talk about the four aspects of the MCA, that is whether it is present, whether it is enabled throughout, and we specifically say in that it was never disabled. And thirdly, about the tampering of the data at a database level and at a report level. And lastly, we talk about the preservation of the data for next 8 years. Just for just something that we saw commonly across few of the clients who used applications which are basic applications. So most of the user roles were named as owners, so all of them had all kind of access. Now we may be very much excited to report this here, but let me tell you, this is obviously a kind of SOD issue. This is not a part of audit trail functionality, but this is something which is most commonly found in most of the when we go to evaluate the list of users and list of the activities at that time. And yeah, while we are once we conclude with this summary report, we'll talk about some challenges that we come across when and a few of the observations that we have come across when audit trail functionality review was done by us. Then we move to the audit reports with respect to ATF. Now, IT audit reports, internal audit reports, whether there are deviations and corrective actions taken, anything related to audit trail functionality is there, which they have already the company has covered. So we have had companies in last 3 years who have specifically conducted an audit internally and also have appointed consultants for their audit trail functionality only. Also, so it's obviously to be reviewed by the statutory auditor. However, if we have external consultants who have we might as well use their resources to for better understanding. However, ultimately we need to have our own evidences. Obviously, like I mentioned, MRL or other using the work of an expert doesn't stop us from having a review ourselves. So yeah, so these are certain things which might as well help us when we go for a ATF review. And lastly, the observations and the management reply, which helps us finally have a reporting under the strategy audit report. So we have covered the theoretical part in the presentation. We have seen how the evaluation can take place and how there can be walkthroughs of ITDC review, or specifically if you want, you can have walkthroughs of applications for audit trail functionality. And the third level of documentation could be ultimately the summary reports, which you as an expert, IT expert, or if you're part of the statutory audit team, you may report it to the stat audit team or the partner. Then ultimately what goes in the statutory audit report is something which is the verbiage to be used, which MCA or ICVI guidance notice asked for. So we've covered these three things. Any questions? I mean, one person have questions, then we can move to 10 minutes. I think we have 10-15 more minutes, right? Then we can move to that if we don't have any questions.
Ma'am, how long are you supposed to keep the audit trail, documentation?
It's 8 years. So audit trail documentation is something that the audit, you're asking about the auditor's responsibility to take care of the audit document, working paper documentation, right?
The working paper is fine, but what happens is generally what I have noticed is while audit and all that, the companies, they don't maintain the logs. So is there any specific time, where the companies are supposed to maintain their audit logs?
Absolutely. Like I said, there is design effectiveness and operating design, and there is operating effectiveness for this particular element. What we check ideally is whether the backup policy has to mention as a design, has to mention 8 years of retention of records as similar to books of accounts. This is mandatory. The compliance says this. And second thing, how do we verify that? Because it's for 8 years. So what happens is even some of the companies have shown us the configuration settings wherever possible. We're talking about few applications, not all of them. Shown us the config settings whereby it says that it was last edited in 2011, 12. So the records, so they've never edited or never changed it. And if they do, then it gets time and date stamped with the user's name. So they and about maintaining the records, like I said, it's obviously a challenge, but the by default setting of most of the organization is that they maintain the books of accounts. However, when it comes to audit trail functionality, that's a challenge. They may have to do it going ahead. This is the first year now that it has become mandatory. So as rightly pointed out, obviously it's a challenge. So I think we may have to obviously look up to MC as to how do we get a solution to that. But so far, I think that's how the compliance says. We have to maintain it for 8 years ahead. It's though it's a huge amount of data.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Ma'am, there is a request from participants that if we can get the presentation and the format of the report that you have just discussed.
Um, I think I'll check with the committee first, and then we'll revert on this.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. We can actually go to the. We can actually put the screen off. If we have any questions, more questions. Um, Practically, I just want to know what are the challenges that you face, because again, when practicing CA, even I want to know what is something that usually is as a challenge is being faced, so that if I'm able to answer that, I'll do. So let's have a discussion that way if there is something that way.
My this thing, is that the audit log, like, what happens is they don't maintain it is maintained, but once it is edited, then we can't go back to the previous this thing. So I don't know how far that trail is maintained, because I always have difficulty in finding out that it has been edited. But after a period of time, that the whole thing just goes away. So we really don't have, how do we save this data? It's very difficult to, maintain what you have suggested in this. But I don't know whether it can be maintained or not.
See, that is the thing, that is a challenge. But I think most of the clients that we have audited, can we go back to the presentation? Most of the clients that we have come across, we have seen that they have, so there are two things. There are compliance procedures and there are substantive. So I would say conflict settings is a compliance procedure where it says that we ensure that at the back end, that is at the tech system level, no one can edit it. When it comes to, so if you could specify the specific application that you're referring to, is it SAP, Tally, or anything else, or in-house developed?
No, it is a Tally, but they have, they have developed it, like they have given specifications and all that. So the edit log doesn't last,
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, of course, we've seen Tally, which is the most user-friendly application. So it actually gives you two sets of information, which is detailed. It talks about in each of the edit logs when you go and click in. It talks about when was it created. We're not talking about only edit. Like in one of the slides I had mentioned, audit trail and edit log have become equivalent now. So in one of those, there is a Tally, we see that all the creations, maintaining, there is a modifications, deletions, everything gets recorded. So no doubt it gets recorded, but the only thing is it doesn't come in the form of a report. It comes in the form of a, like when you go and click at each transaction of the transaction has the edit log thing. It will give you the details. This is not something with Tally. Most of the applications are like that. So very few are such which generate the log reports. And also when they do generate, or when they are capable of generating, this is so huge. So I think there is Tally version. If they have modified or customized something, then specifically we can obviously try to discuss about it post the session, or you can write over to me. We will surely discuss and try to have a we can come up to a point. Let's see what we can do around it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. See, this application, this functionality, as I mentioned, is still at a very, has not matured for many, at least not for the clients of the for the companies. So we still have had to, dictate and say things to them. Though MCA had rightly someone asked a question whether it's we who are supposed to report it, or it's they who are supposed to report the non-compliance, compliant or non-compliant. They are supposed to say with the requirement. However, if they don't, there are quite a lot of times when sometimes we have to call out and read out things to them, and explain out things to them as to this is how the compliance is. And then they prepare notes and they come up with something where they put their screenshots, and when they say that whether we are compliant or not. So but in the first 2 years it has been very difficult for us as statutory auditors as well, that we go to ask for a note, they don't have any, and they come up to us and they ask for things. That's something which is practical. And considering the independence, we to a certain extent try to guide, help them, right? Understand as to what is the MCA or ICA guidance talks about. We take sessions, trainings, and we understand. So that's how it's ultimately going to help all of us. Do we have any questions? Am I audible? Do we have any questions?
Forum, ma'am.
Yes, yes, I'm
Yes,
here.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please see if there is any question. Otherwise, please wind up the session. So
Yeah,
we'll start.
yeah, we don't have any more questions right now.
Okay, I think I'd like to thank everybody for attending this session.
Thank you, Archana ma'am, for conducting such an insightful session today. And the way you explained the practical challenges because of this new system being implemented. So it's very helpful for us also to prepare and evaluate as an auditor uh, with the audit trail systems. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
May we start on the second session now? Tasni, ma'am, may you proceed, please, with the introduction of the second speaker? Tasni, ma'am?
Yes. Can we
Yes,
start?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome for Women by Women. Uh, the second session is understanding the dynamics and guide to working in a global team. And I'm very happy to introduce CA Ruchi Shah. CA Ruchi Shah is an ICI member since 2003. She has 20 years plus of experience in audit, consultancy, and corporate roles. She's part of the global compliance team of a UK-based oil and gas giant, managing key processes across 60 plus countries. She's based in Mumbai. She collaborates with teams worldwide at strategic and operational levels. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tasneem ma'am, for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Namaste, hola, ni hao, aigun, salamat pagi, and hello everyone. Firstly, I must applaud Women Members Excellence Committee for choosing such a topic which is not technical. However, it is the true need of the hour as we chartered accountants are now fast pacing beyond the boundaries of our country. And also, thank you, WMEC, for giving me an opportunity to share my experiences over the years of being part of global team in various capacities. Let me begin by sharing my screen and then um, if someone could confirm if my screen is visible. Okay, thank you. So friends, what you will be hearing from me in next 45 to 50 minutes is not a copy paste from Google or any AI. It's a summation of my learning over last 20 years and understanding of how we humans behave differently when we come from different places. So I'm sure and you will find it insightful because I'll be sharing a lot of my practical experiences as well. Before I start, let me give you a glimpse of my team. This one slide covers around 25 nationalities that I've worked with. Moving to the agenda, I'll be covering first to understand what are the elements of global workplace. So what really defines a global workplace? And okay, let me reshare it and let. Is it now in a full screen mode? Okay. Great, thank you. So we'll first be covering what are the elements of a global workplace, what really defines a global workplace, and how these various elements interplay into forming a workplace and making it truly global. Next, what I would want like to cover is why is there a rising trend? We already are moving towards globalization, but it is now much faster, and the whole world is actually becoming one unit. As it said, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. This is it's global workplace is a professional way of saying the same thing. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That is, the world is one, and hence all organizations and even we as individual professionals like to be a part of a global workplace. Um, Moving on, the third bit would be to cover, as a family, we all have our own opportunities and challenges. And the task is to convert these challenges into opportunities and find the place, make it a global family and make it a very safe space for all of us to be. So, for that, it's very much necessary to understand the nuances, recognize and respect the differences that we all bring to a workplace, and then tap on these differences to make the best use of each one's skill set. So that's where I will be sharing some practical tips into mastering the art and science of a global workplace. And lastly, I'll be happy to address any questions which you may have. If I'm not having the answers, I'll definitely revert at the after the session. Okay, so the first thing, what is a global workplace? And the first thing that comes to our mind is always, of course, it is something which is beyond geographies, different countries, and different continents. But the difference is now shrinking, and the term geography is actually become history. We no longer are defined by boundaries or different continents and countries, and it is not just because of the excellent and the cheap logistics service, but it is also thankfully to COVID, where we have learned to go beyond our countries, interact at the comfort of sitting at home or at office with anyone anywhere across the world. Um, However, there still remains certain cultural differences which we all of us have, being from the country that we are from. It talks about our ethnic backgrounds, gender biases. For example, in India, we still are quite strong on our gender biases, or we still are quite strong in the gender acceptability. Whereas across the globe, in some of the countries, it's absolutely normal if you are part of the LGBTQ plus. And this, again, this is also changing very rapidly, but then there are certain differences as you move from east to west. The historical background of a country also impacts the work culture, the belief, the value system of people that come from that country. So that's where the variety and the vividness of being a global workplace member is important. Uh, Maybe I'll give you one example of a cultural difference, which is something which I have practically experienced. In India, we are very used to, somebody bringing a chai or a coffee at a table during a meeting, and at the end of the meeting, what we typically do is leave it over there, and then somebody will come and clean it or wash it or pick it up, and we don't even bother to know who it is who's done that for us, or we don't even bother to go and thank the person because it's their job. Uh, I had an experience where I went once to China, and at the end of the meeting, I saw everybody picking up their cups and not knowing what the culture is. I also started doing that. I picked up my cup and I saw a lady from the housekeeping rushing up to me and saying that, please leave it here. You are our guest, and we do not want a guest to do this. So it was nice, and I was happy about it. Few weeks later, when I traveled to Malaysia, again, at the end of the meeting, everybody was picking up their cups, and I just left it there, assuming, okay, it's fine, I think I'm the guest here. When somebody came to me, one of my team members, and said, we respect labor out here, and we do not think that anybody over here is employed to pick up your used cups. So it'll be very helpful if you could kindly pick up your cup and put it at the in the pantry, and somebody will wash it for you. Well, initially it was a bit surprising because it's like, okay, I'm the guest and I'm not supposed to do this, but I think over the few weeks that I was there, I got accustomed to it. And the biggest change that I experienced is when I moved to Australia for a few weeks of assignment, and that's where I walked into the pantry to pick up a cup of coffee for myself, and there was a board at the just above the coffee machine. In big letters it was written, "Your mother is at home. Use the cup and wash it by yourself. No please, no sorry, no thank you." But none of them was wrong, but it is just the difference of the culture of that country. So this is I think something which I have learned, being with, it's all part of ASPAC and nearby countries. East, as we say, is one part of the world, and we expect that the culture would remain same, but no, it changes as we go ahead. The next difference, of course, is language differences. And it's not just about people using different languages, but it is also one common language in English, which is the common language across the globe for all professional interfaces. The way people speak, the way people understand, the meaning of a few words will differ. Even the tone and pace at which we speak will be very different. To share an example, my first cross-country interaction was with a person in Vietnam, and it was a one-on-one call. And I kind of just started the way we do, and I know usually I would speak very fast, so I did started speaking very fast, not asking if the person understood. And at the end of the call, I couldn't understand what he was speaking, he couldn't understand what I was speaking, and we both were left feeling unsatisfied and disgusted after the call. uh, but as and when I started interacting with more people across the globe, I realized that English is not the first language for us, but we are fortunate to have the best in class education and, of course, a legacy of being ruled by Britishers, because of which it's become so strong for us. But for the other countries, it's a language which is used as a necessity rather than as a comfort, or something that comes naturally to them. Um, at the same time, the tone at which we speak is also very important. Usually, ASPAC and the countries towards the east are soft-spoken and courteous, whereas when you move towards the west, they're more straightforward, direct, and they do use a lot of sorry, please, thank you, and the courteous words within their conversation. But it's not really to kind of make the other person feel comfortable, and bring that level of comfort in the workplace when they are interacting. Again, it's nothing wrong, it's nothing good or bad, but it's just difference in the way we interact with each other. uh, the other bit of, an important element of global workplaces, of course, the technology and development. What is the level or the status at which the country is currently developed in terms of the technological progress and the overall infrastructure and other development, and also the pace of change. This is very important for organizations to understand and gauge where a country is at, at what status it is, because where the pace is fast is where the future lies. There has to be momentum, there has to be an eagerness for the country to develop faster, and that's where the prospect is and the most preferred location. We don't need to go far. Our country itself, right now, there's a huge influx of foreign investment, huge demand for talent, not just for people based here, but even the brain that's gone out from India. The reason being, we are developing very fast, and the world is looking onto us. So that's one very key element of, of where the global workplace shifts are happening for organizations. Geopolitical and external environment, definitely. For some of you who may not be fully aware of geopolitics, it basically refers to how a country's geography impacts when geography would be the location, terrain, climate, soil, raw materials, availability of modes of transit, etc., that affect the company's foreign policies, international relations, the law regulations, and of course the government policies in that country. So this again forms a very key element of the external dynamics of a country, and that has a very deep impact on the people and organizations that operate in that country. Uh, the regulatory aspect, the compliances, the way corporates work in a country, what are the levels of or the hierarchies of reporting, what are the strengths of the company, of the country. Are they good in supply chain? Are they good in marketing? Where are they creative? Lot of people. Is their fashion sense good, or are they technologically very sound? All these form part of the country dynamics, which are core for any organization and any individual to prosper. Needs to know where and what country is suitable for him or her to bring their operations to that country. And lastly, but I think the most important is the global mindset. What is the level of acumen, or what is the ideology, and how strategic the country is in terms of thinking for progress and development. That really defines all the other parameters. For example, a global mindset will have an impact on how fast the technology changes are happening, or it will have an impact on how the regulatory frameworks are being designed so that people can make the best use of available resources and talent. It'll also have an impact on the languages, because people will be definitely more educated, and education will be given more importance if they have a global mindset. So that, I think, is one of the key important elements in terms of understanding the global workplace. So why is it that companies are preferring a global workplace? We all have seen globalization happening rampantly, of last few decades now. But the pace at which it is happening now is much more faster. And the reason is it's becoming the success mantra for organizations. If I take an example of an online shopping, what we really prefer doing is we're sitting at the comfort of a home. At the click of a button, you search for a product, you get a list of all the options, local products, international brands, you get various prices, colors. You have an ocean of world to choose from. And not just that, you also get options that if you're selecting product A, along with that, you can order product B and product C. So it actually opens up a door of options for you. And similarly, globalization opens a door of options for organizations. uh, you know you will get you organizations prefer it because they get everything what they want at the best of the functional expertise from around the world. You get the best of international diversity, which actually helps the work culture, and it brings in a lot of positivity in the work culture. People become more resilient and patient, and they learn how to think differently, not just think in terms of the strategy that a country adopts, or in terms of the differences that we can bring to work. These all really kind of help in enriching the work culture and the diversity. Of course, there are a few markets which will bring deep local knowledge. For example, if I talk about an IT industry, uh, the best place to be is India right now, or maybe Malaysia if I'm looking for outsource like BPO centers. So the deep local knowledge also helps organizations to be successful. If I'm looking at different perspectives, like the cost of operations is one thing which companies will of course look into while shifting their base towards two different countries. In fact, even my organization is now moving a lot of the operations to India, being a low cost and a high talent market. uh, Different perspectives on strategic and organizational challenges. Now, give an example over here. Most of the some of the Asian countries like Japan, to take an example, they love a lot of challenges, and they love a lot of meticulous planning and execution. The reason being, the country has had a history of earthquakes and nuclear bombing, where they have actually rebuilt or reconstructed entire cities. And even now they do face challenges of earthquakes, they do face, all these natural calamities, and they need to be well planned and always try and minimize the risk that they have. So this has actually been embedded as a value within the people over there, and hence the same values is what they carry to when they come to the workplace. Whereas if we look at India, or maybe I can even take an example of US, we always believe in just starting off things. Let's just start and we'll see if there are any challenges that come up, and we'll manage it on the go. So we start with a P80 or a P90, and then it's kind of as we navigate, we kind of pick it up. So we are not, I would say, we are not like 100% well planned, at the start of operations. Of course, companies will like to capitalize on technological developments, and as I said, the faster moving ones will be the preferred ones. Globalization also help organizations in sealing out any leakages or any ups and downs that come in. For example, there could be forex changes. The impact of government policies in different countries will differ. There could be natural calamities impacting one market, whereas that can be offset with the growing markets in another country. Consumer behaviors may change. So with all these, if a country has operations spread across multiple countries and multiple geographies, it just helps it manage its operations in a more fruitful manner. And the best part of globalization, the clock never stops. So if you are looking for an operation or an industry that operates 24 by 7, you definitely need to have a global workplace. Great. As I said, working in global teams is an art as well as a science. So it's an art because you need to make use of your soft skills. You need to be observant, patient. You need to know how the various elements blend in with each other and create a beautiful picture and being the team that you work with. But it is also a science because it can be acquired as a knowledge over a period of time. It has certain set of principles, and if you will practice those principles, you can definitely master this working in a global workplace. So let me begin by sharing some of the principles that I have learned over the last few years. First challenge is to really navigate all the different time zones and the communication barriers. And some of the principles that you can use to overcome these challenges is: establish overlap hours and set up meetings in advance. This is very important when you're working with teams who are, from east to west. There need to be certain hours where you need to make clear to your team that, okay, if I'm setting up a call with somebody in, say China, and with somebody in US, both the teams should be comfortable in working a few hours later for China and earlier for US. So those are the overlap hours, and most of the global teams, including mine, we have established 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours a day, which are overlap hours, and we will set up those team meetings in advance so that people can plan their day. I think uh, this really helps in clarifying the expectations when you're working in a global workplace, and at the same time, teams would not mind it because they know they are part of such a global workplace. So this just helps in bringing down any kind of misunderstandings or irritation of extending the work hours. The second is using the correct mode of communication. Now, communication is very important, and using the correct mode is even more important because technology can increase or decrease social distancing. If I am working with somebody who is a very close friend of mine, and the mode of communication that I use for maybe some request that I want to do is I send out an email, can you please do this? I think in some places it may not be correct because it will then create a kind of a disrespect or a kind of an unfriendly request that, why am I being sent an email for something which is a request for doing it and not really part of my day job. In such cases, maybe picking up a call or putting it on a chat that, listen, I'm struggling with this. Can you please take some time out and help me? So what mode of communication you use is very, very important. Video conferencing is definitely something which is very helpful, especially because it just makes you feel you're talking to a human figure and not to a wall. And the best mode is face to face meetings. Of course, it has its own cost challenges, it has its challenges in terms of, getting everybody to one workplace. But as a team, or if I'm a line manager, I would definitely want at least once in a while to have a face meeting, say once a year or twice a year, with my entire team, which will then bring the team together. And there are some things which you will learn about your team only when you have these face to face meetings. It's the best way to break the ice wall rather than using video conferencing or email. Uh, the next principle you could follow is try and be as clear and concise. Do not use any jargons. Do not use any slang language. Definitely not. And no indirect messaging. When you try to say something but put other words, and I was thinking if this could happen by end of this week, it would be very helpful. If a line manager says this, the team knows that they want, he or she wants it by the end of this week. But then why do an indirect messaging? Why not say, I was looking for it to happen it by the end of this week, but I do agree that you will have some pre-committed, pre-decided commitments. Is this something you can do, or should you want me to pass it on to somebody else? So that's the way to put it forth, rather than just saying something in the air as an expectation. So try and be as clear and concise in your conversations. The next is redundant communication. Now, this is something which is very important, especially if your team, if you're not confident or not sure if the team has understood or taken any actions. And maybe I can again give an example over here. This is something which is used very often in the team meetings that I have with my team. So my line manager would have a set of things in the agenda, and there are actions that come out of each and every item, definitely for somebody in the team, or it could be for the entire team. But what we use is each team meeting is then followed up with a bulleted minutes of meeting, and then the action points at the end. And each team member is expected to then confirm that he or she has understood the communication and the actions very clearly, which helps in bringing putting away any kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication on timelines or on the actions expected. So the redundant communication is basically it's kind of a follow up of what has been discussed and aligned verbally, to be followed up with an email or a documented form of a communication, where every team member is then required to sign off that this is what we have understood and we have agreed upon. uh, it helps a lot in documenting whatever is expected, as well as ensuring that if somebody has not understood in a verbal format, they at least have it there in front of them in a written format. And of course, always start your meetings with a courteous remark. I appreciate you could join at this time. I hope this is convenient to you. These are some things which makes the other person feel comfortable and wanted, rather than just starting off with your work and your discussions. And at the end of a conversation, always end with an acknowledgement that I appreciate you could join at this hour, or it must be late for you. I hope I'm not disturbing your family time. These are the kind of things which kind of should be always be the start and end of the conversation. And the last bit, adjust your pace. Can't be too fast, you cannot be too slow. You As a tendency, there are a lot of people who tend to eat up words as they speak, and it's assumed that it's running in their mind, but it's not running as they speak. So do adjust your pace to suit your audience, and in the interim, you may also check once in a while that are you okay with, are you clear, or maybe can we just summarize in between what we have discussed. So that gives you a sense of whether your communication is kind of understood by the others. The next challenge is we are so close yet so far, and that is all because of again the distance that we have between us. So how do you come forth or come out of this challenge? Build an emotional connect with your team. Very important. every country again, of course, will take this differently. But if your colleague or if your teammate is sitting a few miles away or few continents away, it is important that you should try and build in first 5 minutes of your conversation as a light conversation. Um, get to share another example from my experiences. I have my current manager as a Nigerian. She's based in UK. When she joined around 2 years, 2.5 years back, we had a 1 hour catch up conversation and no agenda was set up. It was just a catch up conversation. And within that 1 hour, we discussed, she wanted to know everything about me. So, my routine, how I travel to work, who is with my family, what are my likes, my dislikes, everything. She did share hers, but it was kind of optional. She couldn't have done this. She would have just said, okay, let's have a catch up and discuss what are your work areas, or what is it that you want to do 5 years down the line. But no, and it was very surprising because she did that with every team member so that you understand really your team beyond the workplace. And I think that emotional connect and that 1 hour that I spent with her has really helped me ease out all my conversations over the last 2.5 years. So very important is to know to kind of build an emotional connect with the team. Also, if you're traveling to another country, do try and know the local culture. um, Depends on which part of the world you are, and every country will be different. But there are a lot of books and a lot of articles on Google, and a lot of organizations have these sessions or trainings which help you know the local culture of the country. For example, Germany, they are very straight, and as at the start of the meetings, it's you exchange your pleasantries and then you straight away start with work. Whereas a country close to it, Greece, which is another European country, they will want you to start with knowing or sharing about your personal self. How are you finding Greece as a country? Where have you been, except Greece, any other countries that you have traveled before, after? So they tend to be more courteous, they tend to be more friendly, and they expect that at the start of even professional meetings. So knowing the local culture is definitely very helpful, and you should invest time and prepare the way you prepare for your visas and the way you prepare for your for your attire and carrying those woolens and etc. You should definitely invest time into knowing the local culture of the place that you're visiting. Do have regular catch ups, especially if you are in a global team. It is not necessary that it's only the line manager who should have a catch up with the team. Even the team members amongst themselves should have regular catch ups, to discuss work or otherwise. So then it helps in building that sense of comfort and reducing the social distancing that we all will of course be experiencing working in global teams. And every team should follow a zero tolerance for any cultural insensitivity. I think this is very, very pivotal. Any person talking, commenting on either the religious belief or the attire or or the work culture, that definitely is a conversation which should be tabooed in organizations, because it's only then when we have recognized the differences and respected them. Um, and also the act of questioning. Now, this is very important, especially for line managers. In a team, usually what happens is there are a few people who are very vocal, and they are very prompt in expressing their views. But there are some who do not get the opportunity to discuss or share their views. So very important is to for a line manager is to start asking questions, not to put anybody in a spot, but to make sure that their voice is heard. It could be just that, do you have any views on this, or are you comfortable with what has been discussed? Do you think we can do it differently? I think when that happens, it reduces the negative dynamic that usually teams go through, and also the mistrust or the misunderstanding that we tends to happen in a global team can be controlled or brought down significantly. um, And the body language which the teams use, especially on now if we are on video calls, I think the body language has a lot to play into bringing down the negative dynamic. In North America, it's very normal. If you look into the eye and you ask your question confidently, it shows, it demonstrate you are clear on what you're asking, and you know what you are kind of confident into what you have. So a direct eye contact is not considered to be rude. Whereas in many other countries, if somebody speaks to you talking into your eye, especially if somebody who is a lower level and talking into with a senior level and speaking into the eye, it is considered as a matter of disrespect or rudeness. So it's again, as I said, it's the culture. So before you interact with different people, try and learn the culture and try and learn what is acceptable and what is not in that country. Right. The next is talking about the environment. So what stage of development, what regulatory compliance? We've seen this in the earlier slide. So in this, it's I think very important is to first understand where or what place is the development curve of the development curve is the country in, and what is the pace of change. Um, this helps definitely the organizations to right position their markets or right position their teams. It also helps individuals to identify their set of talents and where they can best be explored or used, and which is the ideal country they should be in if they want to have the best opportunities. um, but at the same time, don't assume they have it. I'll bring in an example over here, which is a personal example that which was very shocking for me. We know Singapore is one of the advanced countries, and probably everyone over there who's fairly senior will have a car at their disposal. So I had gone for a training to Singapore, and that was being delivered by the CFO. And at the end of the training, we were supposed to go for a gala dinner. We were cribbing, there were two of us, me and my colleague, and we were cribbing that, okay, the training starts at 9 o'clock. We have to reach from the hotel. It's 10 minutes walking from here. It's so difficult. And, the cabs were not arriving. So we had to leave the hotel at 8:30, get ready and leave at 8:30. And we were kind of very, not so happy at the start of the day. And when we reached there at 8:30, we reached there and everything was set up. The CFO was there and preparing her slides and attaching to the presentation, etc. At the end of the day, when we were heading for the dinner, we were happy that okay, now at least we don't have to walk up. So me and my colleague were very happy that okay, we'll bump into the CFO and we'll travel with her to the dinner location, and it'll be easy for us. We'll not have to walk up. And as soon as we exited the meeting room, the CFO said, "Please follow me." She started walking in her stilettos, and she was walking and walking and walking, and we said, "Okay, maybe she's going to the parking lot." And suddenly we take a turn, and we were right on the walkway at the highway, on the main road. And both of us stopped, me and my colleague, and looked at it that what are we doing? Are we going to walk up? It's kind of 20 minutes from here. The CFO turned around and said, "Oh, it's very close to my house. It's just 15 minutes to my house and then 5 minutes further away. So we'll walk up." And we were absolutely shocked. And when we asked her that, why didn't you get your car, or is there some issue with your car? And she said that no, it's very expensive over here to bring your car. Parking is expensive, fuel is expensive. So we don't bring a car. We all either use the local transport or we all walk up. And that was kind of surprising. We are all spoiled to be having all the luxuries. But being a CFO, her time is important. She has a lot to attend to, and she was walking up every day 15 minutes to workplace and back, and not a moment where she was cribbing about it or she was tired about it. So we need to know that yes, there are they are developed, they are having those luxuries, but don't assume that they're able to use it. So that's one key element to know. Again, what is the culture of that place. um, you should know the growth mindset, how how is the mindset of the people and the country, whether they are strategic in their thinking or no. Usually in developed nations, they are already much ahead in this in the development curve, so they're kind of stagnant. They prefer work life balance. They do spend on luxuries, travel, etc. And hence, you would see in countries, in a few countries in US, their salaries are processed every 15 days because the spending habits are much higher. They do travel a lot. They do, they're not into saving and investment for retirement, etc. Whereas if you see in India, it's changing, but still there is a mindset to save. There is a mindset to plan for your retirement and for your next generations to come through. So you should know what is the mindset that impacts the country. And this is important when you are maybe launching a product or launching a new operational cycle into that country. For example, if I'm launching a luxury brand, and if I go to a country like Nigeria to launch it, it will make no sense because it'll be a very very small market. They are struggling. Some parts of that country are struggling for the basic necessities of life, and when I launch luxury brand, it will not make an impact. So these are, I think, the common things which we need to bear in mind when we are looking at which is the best place to have a strategic tie up with. um, the lot of these government policies are also important. They kind of are important when you're doing your investments into any country, either as a startup or providing certain services to these countries. Um, to acquire the professional qualifications, we as chartered accountants are recognized in many, many countries, and thanks to ICAI, what they have done over the years. But there are certain countries where we will need to get the professional qualifications in place. So either you acquire it or you hire the local expertise to where you're providing your services. And of course, the historical background. I think history and strategy are two very closely linked two very closely linked in terms of how they pace with each other. Um, Example I can share is, again, you know, we have we have been ruled. India as a country has been ruled not just by the kings and the Britishers, but in different parts of the country by a lot of different people, yeah, in different countries. So we believe in a lot of hard work. We believe in following the leaders, and that's the strategy or that's the work culture we have. Whereas if you look at Vietnamese, they have had a series of a series of attacks that are done on the country, and they have been faced and thrown open to challenges all through. So that's the culture there, where people will not accept what you just throw on them. They have had war, they have had a lot of destruction, and they will push back and they will make sure that they will try to fight till the end. So that's how the history plays into the culture and the strategy of that country. So all these things, I think, learning all these principles, learning all the mindset of how things and how people work in countries is very very important. But at the same time, it's not difficult. You do your homework, you do a bit of practicing, and I'm sure you can master the art and science of a global workplace. And I would maybe say people are people everywhere. We all are human beings, but it is our family, and we have to keep this family closely knit and be a happy place to be. So that's where we should try and give time and space to each other. At the same time, we should be ready and doing our homework and background so that we make this as a good place to be with everybody else. I can go on with a lot more examples, but maybe I'll stop here. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Okay, if there are no questions, then I mean, that's all from me, friends.
Akriti ma'am, are you there? Akriti
Hi,
ma'am?
hi. Yes, just give me a moment. I had some technical glitch, so I'll just log in. I'll just check the questions if there are any. Please give me a minute.
Yes,
Sure.
yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, we request participants to type the questions. If you are having any, please type the question.
Hi. Ruchi ma'am, there are no questions as such, but I'm sure that the participants and everybody had a wonderful time listening to you because it was quite informative and it really gives them an insight into how they can really, globally and the challenges which are faced nowadays by people. So it really helps them. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I personally found it very insightful. And I'm so thankful to all the participants who have come and who have listened to you. We are really grateful because it is the support of all the speakers and all the other, the participating members who makes it so our conference is such meaningful. So thank you so much, everybody, for participating in this. And
Uh,
thank you so much, Ruchi ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you, Akati ma'am. Just now we received few questions, Ruchi ma'am.
Sure.
Like I would like to put up for you. First question is like your suggestion for future chartered accountant to start practice of work with MNC as they offer work from opportunity, which is not in case of CA firm.
Sorry, if you could please repeat. They
Yeah,
offer
yeah.
work from.
Yeah, your suggestion for new chartered accountants to start practice or work with MNC as they offer work from opportunity, which is not in case of CA firm.
Yes, so I think for CA firms it is very difficult because of the nature of work that we have. But for to the surprise of many, I am sharing again. When I took a sabbatical for 2 years, I was working in an internal audit firm from home. Of course, it had. I mean, there were pluses and minuses in the sense that I could not visit a client place more than once in the month. So I had to manage on the phone or kind of direct my team. But if you are at a reasonable stage in your life where you have got the exposure, gradually I do see CA firms also moving into trying and adopting AI technology and offering work from home. Right now it is difficult considering the way the setup is, but a lot of these offices do have backup teams who do data analysis, etc., on the client data. So yes, it's not a full model. I would say that you can 100% sit at home and work, the work that CA firms do, but then it is gradually changing. And if you look at the other side, a lot of these taxation, tax audits, and tax filings are now also being done remotely. So I think it's gradually changing. So maybe few years down the line, we'll have WMEC conducting a seminar on how to get back to office.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Ma'am, Gracie ma'am from Dombivali is asking what jobs are available to CAs which give opportunity to interact globally.
Yeah. What jobs are available? Okay. One is, of course, these consulting. I think a lot of these consulting for mergers, acquisitions, or tax filings. A lot of Indian companies who have operations globally, they need to do certain regulatory compliances in that country, and they prefer chartered accountants from India to be doing these kind of services from them. Certifications, etc., which are required regularly in operations. All these are opportunities where you can work globally. On the other hand, I as a I'm a part of a control and a compliance team. So this is usually these kind of teams are set up in UK or US where the company headquarters is, but then a lot of these are changing and a lot of these kind activities are now moving to India as a hub. I can't share much about my organization, but what I can share is, we are setting up an entire audit team, which will be headquartered in India. It's an audit and control compliance team, which will be headquartered in India, and it will be providing services to the globe wherever we have our operations. So it is changing, and these are just some of the examples of what services we as chartered accountants can provide to global level. Does that answer
Uh,
your question, Tracy, ma'am?
yes, ma'am. Please write in the chat box. And wow, ma'am. Meanwhile, Vishakha Deshpande, ma'am from Pune, she's writing. It was a very insightful session. Thank you, ma'am, for the same. Tejaswini, ma'am, from Bangalore is writing. This was very informative. Is there a way to connect with you over LinkedIn or other platforms?
Sure, I can. I don't know if that's allowed, but somebody on the call and from the committee, if you can confirm, then I can share my LinkedIn link on the chat box.
So
Yes,
there
you
are
please
one
share
more.
in the chat box. We will share with the participant.
Okay, sure.
There is
Okay.
another question also from Swati ji. She mentioned that. So my question is not person specific. It's a normal issue with women who want to start their second innings after motherhood. How should they start? Because they are at a home by whatever reason, maybe for 7 to 10 years.
Yeah. So this itself by itself is a topic, and I have gone through that. Of course, there's lots to talk about it. But usually, what we go through is, when should I start? That's one of the challenge that people have think, oh, I've kind of 7 to 8 years, I have lost knowledge, I've lost the touch of industry. Uh, there is just absolutely no taboo. There is no right time to start rather than starting it now, and now is only the right time. You may at the start have inhibitions, and they are mostly inbuilt, where you feel that, oh, I don't know this, or oh, I have lost knowledge. But knowledge and skill go nowhere. They are within you. So if you are getting an opportunity, it may be at very low pay scale, or maybe coming out of your comfort zone and working on to something which you've never done before. But as soon as an opportunity knocks your door, I would say just start. And once you're thrown into the swimming pool, you'll definitely learn to swim, you'll definitely come out, and you will definitely be victorious. So just start it. I would, I had been on a sabbatical for 2 years. So and as I said, I was doing audits at that point of time. But even when after that, when I had to join back my, audit firm, I felt a part of me had become redundant, and I felt I will not get that opportunities that the way I would get earlier. But believe me, I not just went and I not just proved myself once again, but I was much better. And then, the way I was, because motherhood taught me how to be more resilient, patient, and persistent. So there is never a right time to start, but it's now, and just start it off, I would say.
That's such a beautiful answer, Ruchi ma'am. Personally, just I would like to add somewhere here. So I too just took a sabbatical for 2 years recently, and then I was on the same plane like you, that maybe I'll not get the opportunities, maybe I'll not get a job also. But things haven't been that way. It's like you mentioned, it's just now. Just think it, and then just start working towards it. Might be, and at the same time, I personally feel that a better thing mentally would be to acknowledge that we are not at the same place with others. Otherwise, that comparison really pulls us back. So, having that
Absolutely.
awareness that, okay, my priorities are not just the work, they are children also. And with that acceptance, when we move forward, it's like it becomes easy. Otherwise, the mind takes a toll.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kriti.
Yeah.
Well
So,
said.
okay, there is another question. So, Gracie, she is again asking that how do we get these jobs?
I believe you're talking about remote working jobs. So Gracie, there's lots on LinkedIn which posted, but I suggest there are organizations. Or I don't think so. I can share them, but if you do Google them, there are a lot of these agencies or consulting services where they give you an option to enroll yourself as a work from home or as a part-time working. A lot of organizations are now following agile work practices, and even organizations which are purely in India. So it's not always this. So you have that opportunity. And if you're looking for organizations which offer you global roles, I think you just have to keep your, keep it open. So I wouldn't. The best is to get into an MNC. Yeah, you get into a company which has operations across the globe, and when the opportunity comes, most of these companies do post it on their company portals that, if you want to relocate to say whichever part of the world, they do have the internal portals, and if you feel you can meet those the parameters or the requirements of the role, you can move. So both the parts of it. If you're looking for work from home opportunities, you have these consultants open, and if you're looking for opportunities to move to another country, you should try and get into an MNC, or even even consulting firms that have clientele across the globe. They kind of, they do give opportunities to people as a learning and development, to work on cross border assignments. So both ways.
Okay, there is another question from Vishakha ji. So she's asking, will AI prove any major role in easing such global workplace connections? And she has also asked that what all basic certifications are required to be part of the global team.
Okay. So to answer your first question, AI is not just for global role, it is for any role across any level in the organization or any workplace. It is definitely being a game changer. For global roles, certainly it helps because it helps and it does not help in one way. So definitely because of AI coming in place, and data analytics, and all the digitalization, the level of human requirement is shrinking day by day, and that's where you see a lot of people who are kind of restructuring and removing people from the organizations, because that's being replaced by tools. At the same time, I would say Indian mind and the way Indian mind works, we are very good in handling data, technology, etc. So for us, AI and digitalization is also proving out to be a boon, because we are having a lot of these roles shifting to India. So that's to answer your first question. AI does impact the global roles, definitely. Um, Sorry, if you can remind me the second question, please.
Yeah, what kind of certifications would be required to be part of the global team?
Okay, so there are no certifications, frankly, all that you need to know. I mean, at least I'll tell you in my role, I'm not doing anything technical, so I'm not working on the legal compliance in Germany, or I'm not working on the filing of audit reports in Australia. I'm not doing that. Mine is a very control compliance, which is a kind of a I put it as a role which needs a lot of common sense, and a lot of ability to manage things. So I have not taken any qualification besides, of course, the CA, which is itself, I think it's the father or mother of all the degrees that I could. So no technical qualifications as such. However, in terms of if you are looking for any niche area where you want to provide your services, then definitely for that country, what that country requires. Like if you're looking for providing a legal advisory to somebody in, say Vietnam, so you need to know the laws of that country. You need to probably, if they have some qualification requirements, you need to follow them. But otherwise, there is no qualification for, no technical degree required for working in a global team.
Okay. So Tejaswini ji is asking, can you suggest some more ways to connect with your team on a personal level, similar to the 1 hour connect with your manager without an agenda?
Yes, Tejaswini. So, yeah, so I think on a personal level, as I said, face-to-face meetings help. But if there are cost challenges, then one thing which you should follow is you should always have your video on during conversations. It talks a lot about the body language of a person, and you learn a lot from that. The other bit could be to firstly understand if the other person is comfortable. But you can always ask questions about hope you had a good morning, or how are your children, etc. Depends. Like, of course, some countries you can't ask the question, how is your husband or how is your wife. We have to use the word partner, and even then people may not be comfortable to ask about family. So do gauge that, but then asking questions, and maybe or sharing your own history. Like, I always share my pictures on Diwali with my team, so they got to know about our culture, and once they get comfortable they will themselves share. So it also can begin from you. The second bit could be to, the other way you could build a connect is to, to have these events where I had started for my team, raising energy. And what it meant by raising energy is there were rapid fire questions which were asked in advance. We would have a set of 30 questions asked to one team member. That would be all on a personal level. They can choose to answer, choose to skip, and most of them would answer because everybody wants that others know them. Yeah, every person wants. Nobody is that introvert that sits in a place and nobody knows me, and one is happy being that. So do such initiatives where you ask about a person and then share it with the larger team, share their pictures. That's also one beautiful way of connecting with the team. And the Tasneem, if I've shared my LinkedIn LinkedIn link into the chat box, but if you want, I can also even share those 30 questions that I had with my team. Yeah, that's, I think, a very good way to connect with the team.
Right, and they sound very interesting because asking them, like you mentioned, everybody wants them to know. And I often used to wonder about this, that we spend so much part of our lives in the office, and when we don't know the person, what they're going through, the one who is, like, sitting next to me, or when it is global, then we are spending most of the day with them. But when we don't know about each other, it's kind of sad.
Yeah,
So I
true.
think these rapid questions would really help, and they really sound very interesting. So, okay, ma'am,
Exactly.
that's it for the questions. And a lot of people have complimented, like Vishakha ji mentioned, it was a very insightful session. Then Pooja ji also mentioned that it's a very insightful session. Then Saida mentioned that it was very interesting. We had people joining from a number of places like Ghaziabad, Pune, Indore, Bangalore, Delhi, Vadodara. So it's like I believe that people have, like, everybody has really benefited from the program. So thank you so much for this session and your valuable time. And I also think that, it's really amazing on the part of ICAI to have these sessions which are women exclusive, because there are so many things that we want to talk about, and there are so many things, like, it really helps just by sharing, just by listening to you. We get that inspiration that, okay, you can do it, and somewhere we can also manage, and we can also go ahead despite the challenges, despite the personal things. So it's really, really, it really helps. So thank you, ICI, also
Thank
so
you.
much for this wonderful session. And thank you, our participants, our audience who have listened to us so patiently and they have been here. Thank you so much, everybody. So